Welcome, Andraea, and thank you so much for being on the show today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so
Excited.
glad you're
Thanks for
here.
having me.
Yes, of course. I know that we actually worked together about a month or so ago, and I just loved your spirit and the way that you think about things. And I know we connected a lot on like
hmm
the spiritual level and just that idea of serving and helping people. And so I'm really grateful to know you and to now get to share you with my audience. So thank you.
Yay, thanks so much. Thrilled.
Yay.
Be fun.
Okay. I know it will. So before we jump in, would you mind telling us what does your spiritual practice look like?
That's great. I identify as a Christian, or I more recently really like to say a follower of Jesus. I feel like there's a lot of unfortunate, just portrayal of Christianity right now, and so I really, it's following the principles that Jesus, when he walked the earth, is really my goal. And so my spiritual practice really looks like, uh, studying, praying, continual conversation. Like I've really tried to um, leaning into what it looks like to be, praying without ceasing. Like, what does it mean to
Mm,
just be in continual conversation and asking? And I think even still, to really focus on the power of words, and like knowing that words, God created the world with words. And so and the Bible talks about like the power of life and death being in our tongue. And so I've also more recently just been like just declaring good things over my life, and what are the things that I believe to see, and whether it's around health, whether it's around business, whether it's around wealth or family or whatever. So there's that. I also really think it's important to be in relationship with other folks that are like-minded in that way. Those are the people that really, I have a couple of close friends that really keep me grounded um, and thoughtful, and out focusing less on myself, I would say, and trying to make sure that I'm looking at things holistically. Just this morning, I had a friend that was like, "Are you breathing? Are you taking time to meditate?" That kind of stuff. Um, and honestly, that is probably really key. I think it's just when we think about what the church looked like back in the very, very early days, and it talks about them doing life together, like they ate together, they lived together, they all of that. While obviously we're in a virtual world, I still think that because of the nature of technology, that relationship is important. So, yeah.
Wow. You said a lot of powerful things. And I especially love the fact that you pointed out that God created the world with the word. Your word
Mhm.
is so powerful. And that just struck a deep chord with me. So thank
Mhm.
you for sharing that. And also, it sounds like you have really great friends. Did you guys promise to each other? Like, did you have to verbally say, oh, remind me to breathe? Or is it was it a natural thing? Like, how did you get to that point?
That's a really good question. Yes. So we are very, a couple of my friends in particular are we kind of ask one another, how can how can I support you, or what? And we all have very different personalities. And I'm a very introspective person. I'm an Enneagram 4, so I'm always thinking a lot about me.
Yeah.
And I like reflection, and I like to kind of muddle in my stuff. And then I have friends that are like not so much so. They don't like, what I mean. So I think it's been learning what one another needs, and asking and say, but also being bold enough to um, you know say, you may not want to hear this, or uh, let me check you on this, and knowing that the people have my best interest at heart, or that we have one another's best interest at heart. And and it may not settle well in the moment,
Mm.
when you know that there's nothing but love there, and when there's no other motive, I think especially for those of us that are very career driven, and we have these relationships kind of in other spaces, having friendships that have no other goal but to
Mm.
just be supportive of one another is really important, because I know for me in the work that I do, I have a lot of community based on the different communities that I represent, and that's great, and a lot of times we need each other for different types of reasons, but it's also really nice to have friends that have almost no idea what you do. You know what I'm saying? They have like they know just enough to be supportive and to provide feedback and to help, but also they're not tied to it in any way other than to like support your growth and like to really support your dreams. So yeah.
That's great. And how do you get to that point where you can have differences of opinions, or maybe like you said, it's a tough conversation because they have to bring something up, but you still have that love? So what does that take on a spiritual foundational
Yeah.
level to be able to do that?
That's real, man. These are great questions. Especially because I had, it was literally this morning where I had a friend that was like, okay, how, I don't remember the word that she said to me because I was talking about how stressed I was. And she was like, okay, how candid do you, she didn't use the word candid, but it was kind of like, how candid do you want me to be? And I'm like, tell me the truth. And I think for me personally, um, it has taken my trust in God and like knowing that He speaks through people and believing
Wow.
that He, His Spirit, if it's in all of us, and sometimes, sorry, His
That's okay.
Spirit, God's Spirit, if His Spirit is in all of us, and sometimes depending on where I'm at, and I'm, not, I believe that He speaks through the Word, and He speaks, very much through, other people. And so like the Word is in like the Bible, we open it up, and He can speak, to us, and then He also uses other people. And so I have had to, because of past experiences where feeling rejection and a lot of those things that we experience in life, it has taken a level of trust in first in Him, and knowing that He has placed people in my life with purpose, and then going, okay, this may be uncomfortable right now, this may hit you wrong, and I may not respond in the best way in the moment, but they know, but that's why it's important to have people in your life that also know that and are like, it's cool, it's fine, it'll hit you later, all good. You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I definitely have a few friends like that too, where maybe I didn't respond in the best way possible, but
Yeah.
they love me enough and know me enough. But I think the key part is, well, first of all, you have a lot of humility to be able to be open like that, to admit, okay,
Mm,
maybe I don't see everything, maybe I don't know everything. So I'm going to be open to what they're saying, but also there's that foundation of trust. Like you said, you
yep.
trust that they're in your life for a reason. You trust that God can speak
Yep.
to you through other people, which I've experienced so many times as well. And I just love that openness and that spirit of humility that you have.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about your work and what you do and what brought you to the work that you're doing today. Like, what was your journey getting to where you are?
Sure. So I have a consulting firm that focuses on strategy and communication, specifically corporate and nonprofit spaces. But our lens is really, which you helped us come up with this, so I can't even deny this. But our slogan is, really helping people speak disability with confidence. So I have a physical disability. I'm a wheelchair user. Have been my in most of my life. was diagnosed when I was 2 years old. And so for all intents and purposes, I've been wheelchair user my whole life. And
Would you
I
mind
also,
sharing what you were diagnosed with, or?
yeah, so it's called spinal muscular atrophy. And so, yeah, I mean, it looks different on different people. But for me, I'm a wheelchair user. And so, um, and I also am Black. And so I think that um, my my formal educational background is in public relations. But I worked for years in a nonprofit space around youth development and specifically supporting young people with disabilities. And what I found along the way was that a lot of people are fearful of talking about disability. They don't know what to say. They don't know how to say it. They don't know how to engage people with disabilities. It's entirely, too different. It's not a still, even though people with disabilities represent the largest minority group in the world, and 1 in 4 people have, disabilities, that it's still so taboo. And specifically when we look at kind of all facets of life, it's the one, minority group where if you're not, in essence, for most of us, I grew up in a Black family, so you have that identity. Those of us that, you see women's rights, you see all of these things, but for disability, it's often hard to find one's people. And so, and that means, how does that translate into the employment space? How does that translate into recreation? How does it translate into uh, churches and other, spiritual, bodies and places? And so I just really felt it was important to kind of bridge my gifts, which are around communication and writing and helping people develop, strategies, and bring that together with my lived experience as a disabled Black woman. And so that's what I do, is help companies um, with their content development, with their overall strategies around how to employ people with disabilities, how to market to people with disabilities, um, how to reach them in general, how to ensure they're part of the conversation, so that ultimately, the world is better.
That's great. And I'm really glad that you brought up the fact that a lot of times people just don't know how to engage differences, or to include differences, or to like to broaden the scope
Mm-hmm.
in their life and in the world, and work and all those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to talk about why diversity is viewed in such a narrow lens,
Mm-hmm.
and what do people typically miss? Because we've talked about in
Yeah.
previous conversations that God creates differences for a reason. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
that we're all here to learn and grow spiritually, and
Mm-hmm.
differences create opportunities to
They,
learn for
they
the
do.
people who are experiencing the differences, for the people who interact with people that have certain differences. And I believe they're there to help us each overcome and change perceptions on a spiritual level. So again, I want to know why diversity is viewed in such a narrow lens, and what is it that people typically miss?
Yeah, so I think people know what they know, and they focus on what they see a lot. And they focus on what are essentially the hot topics, just like, over the past couple of months, we've seen Black Lives Matter, you know, um, trending in such a way that all of a sudden everybody is, on, and I say this as a Black woman, so I'm not saying it in any other way but what I consider to be the truth, which is, kind of jumping on this bandwagon. Um, and Black lives have been around forever. So, like, obviously, you know, um, and so a lot of, the whole concept of even this, diversity, equity, and inclusion, um, DEI, and now hiring initiative, or, having HR departments that have D&I folks, is a thing. And yet disability is often left out of those those conversations. And again, I think it's because it's not a cookie cutter process to engage, because we all are so different. I even say for myself, I mean, I have plenty of friends with the same exact diagnosis, and it looks very different on each person. Our needs are different. And so the more, and also, I think people are, from, when it comes to certain perspectives, when you don't, like I said, you don't see it, but also, yeah, until it hits you close, we often don't address it. And so I think that is why the, diversity narrative is so narrow. And then, when it comes to disability too, a lot of people are concerned, well, how much is it going to cost, to make
Mm.
accommodations? How much, yeah, what is the sacrifice? Because, when it comes to some other minority groups, and not all, but the investment looks different, right?
Mm.
And so in this case, there might be literal cost, whether that's attitudinal, or actual
Yeah.
monetary costs, that makes a difference. And honestly, when it comes to disability, it really feels like in a lot of spaces that people just, until somehow or another it hits home, for a person, that they don't really think about it.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. And so I like how you said that sometimes it just doesn't hit home for them until it does, or if they have an
Mhm.
experience or like a reason to, even though I feel like you don't need a reason to care about everyone and try to include everyone. And I know, yeah, it's a very interesting topic, but why would you say, if someone were to ask you, why is it important to be aware and open to the differing needs of others? Like, what is not the benefit, but like, just why? Why is it important?
Well, A, we're all human beings.
Yes.
And we all were, depending on where your belief system lies, we're created in the image of the creator. And so, like, there's that. I think also that, different perspectives, really, make us better, because it's just, if you think about the people that you've gotten to know that are different from you, how that has expanded every aspect of who you are, and not only for you but for other people. And so, for those of us that, I mean, the experience of, accepting people, creating space for people, bringing different voices not only to the table, but, so not only bringing different voices to the table, but also, um, having them as decision makers, and even maybe being quiet sometimes. Like, uniformity is honestly boring. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
it looks, you're not going to have any innovation. You're not going to have, um, yeah, just creativity. I can tell you, I mean, for those of us that we call them, I mean, there's just so many things in the disability community that we come up with, that are just cool, because we, are used to adapting the spaces. And it's the same way, even, for all minority groups, because our perspectives, um, lend to the conversation and make things better. And then you're also creating a space for the next person. And I think just demonstrating, your commitment to, um, yeah, to just kind of loving everyone, and valuing everyone's life. I mean, that's,
Yeah.
it's, that's really the main thing. We all have value, no matter who we are. And yeah.
Oh, it's wonderful. You said so many great things. And I know, even working with you, I now ask different questions when I'm dealing with people. I
Mhm,
now see different perspectives. And I'm so
mhm.
grateful for that, because, like you said, uniformity is boring. I mean, being open to learning and getting new perspectives and including, everyone is a gift, and it really is a benefit to us all. And I know that there have been times where I feel mentally stuck, and I felt
Mhm.
like I don't know what to do. I don't know how to dream bigger. But then I watch a show and it sparks something in me. Or I have a conversation with you or someone and you like make me think bigger. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't have thought that way had I not had that conversation or watched that show. So it's almost like allowing the space for new experiences, new voices. And yes, just all of it. Yes, I love that. And on episode 7, I talked about the idea of authentic power and how external power is just the physical senses. Like you basically, you only see the world through those senses, and it's hard for you to go beyond that. And power externally is seen as something that you fight for, or you steal, or you borrow. It's a very like, finite thing. Whereas authentic power is when you are open and you're spacious and you know that it comes from within. And I feel like the more that we as spiritual beings having a physical experience, the
Yeah,
more that we operate from authentic power, I think we will find that space expanding within us to make sure that everyone is included and seen and
absolutely.
heard.
Absolutely.
So how can we have a better awareness of being inclusive and helping others have a better space in their life? Because I really believe being spiritual isn't about just self-focus. It's about
Yeah.
growing the self so that we can pour goodness into the collective. So how can we have that better awareness?
I think it's looking at who is already at your table and inviting more people, inviting the people that look different, that uh, now we have so much at our fingertips in terms of even it doesn't necessarily even mean physically inviting them, but actually following, and being quiet and listening, and saying, I want to hear, like, who else is not, who else am I not creating space for, in my life? Again, not necessarily that I'm talking to you directly, but that you're following on your social media channels, that you're listening to, their podcasts, and that you're, for those of us that have privilege and influence, that you're when you go into a space and you realize everybody here looks like me, or has the same experience, or whatever, that you call it out, and that you aim to get to know, the right people. I can't tell you, gosh, my every single day, not a day goes by where I don't get can you recommend, certain people for this particular thing? Can you recommend a group of disabled people? Right now, it's specifically, can you recommend a group of disabled people of color? And while I'm happy to do that, I'm looking forward to the day when my able-bodied or non-disabled allies can have those resources, you know what I'm saying, and know those people without having to come to the people. And it's the same with blackness, and where they're like, okay, I need to highlight somebody black on my profile, can you tell me somebody black? That's really unfortunate if you don't have a relationship, you know what I'm saying, with somebody that can speak to any specific experience. And then having conversations, moving beyond tokenism, so that they're just there, but they actually have a decision making, they have actual decision making power and voice in spaces, and that's how it's going to grow, and that's how it's going to get better. And I think from a disability lens, what's really important is that you're not seeing it from a place of pity, but you are, if you're going back to what you talked about, power, there is, seriously, I mean, we're people no matter the experience, and to be seen as, sad or less than, or in any way, shape, or form, like we're not the same. That's not doing us any favors at all. You know what I mean? And so it really is saying, I value you, and I want to hear from you, and I want to create space for you. That's what's most important.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as far as allowing more diverse voices in your life, do you
Mm-hmm.
just suggest going on Instagram and just exploring and being curious and seeing
Mm-hmm.
who resonates with you? Because I'm just thinking too, like, I know over the past couple months, I've found a lot more diverse voices, and it was
Yeah.
through like an Instagram post or like
Yeah.
different things. So, like,
Yeah.
is that probably the best way to do it, just to like explore and be curious about what voices would connect with you? Or
Yeah, I think so because I mean, even within the disability space, I don't connect with every person with a disability. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like it does generally boil down to values in different ways, and that looks different for values look different for different people, obviously. And so I think that it is yes, but it's also expanding. And so I mean, right now, especially given our current
Yes.
world, I think that that's a great way to start. I think it's following certain hashtags that you maybe, have not um, aimed, thought about. So the following in the past for us, it's like disability pride. It's Black disabled and proud. It's Black disabled lives matter. In addition to Black lives matter, it's disability justice. So I think it's you know, that's a great way to begin, and then slide in some people's DMs and say, hey, I want to know. I mean, we're like one of the projects I'm working on, we're doing a summer series, and I had somebody reach out, like a virtual series, and somebody reached out to me today, just said uh, they were calling about something else, but they said I've been watching on Sundays, and I was like, whoa, really? Thank you so much, because I know they're a non-disabled person, and they were like, yeah, I need to know how to be a better ally. And so that's what I'm saying. Like there are opportunities, to go into space. Just because it has a specific label on the event, it doesn't always mean that it's just for those people. So if it says disability in it and you want to know more, sign up for it. If it says, unless they specifically say this group is for disabled people, because obviously there are moments when, we all need our own individual spaces. But I think even from there's so many organizations um, that even from a Blackness perspective, NAACP since the beginning of time has had white allies in it. You know what I mean? Urban League, same way. So there are spaces that are not exclusive just to the specific people that their specific target audience. There's always a secondary audience.
That is so interesting and such a great point that you brought up, because it's almost like in defining ourselves, we miss the ability to see ourselves in other spaces as well.
Yeah,
So it's almost like as soon as I can stop labeling myself as in a certain box, then maybe I can be more open to being curious and going into these other
absolutely.
spaces. And I love that. I love that thought process. And I know already that I'm like, okay, great.
Yeah,
I want to
I
change
love
the way I think.
I love going into other faith-based spaces. It helps me have conversation. I mean, if we're, you know, so modular, like if we're just, straight and narrow, then how are we gonna know, and how are we gonna have, enlightened conversations? So I'm like, yes, invite me to a like whatever, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
I wanna know, and I wanna understand, and that's the only way that I'm gonna do it. If I isolate myself to a specific uh, space or experience, then it's not helping. It's not helping anybody really.
Absolutely. And I know that when we first started working together, I've asked questions like this, and I'm sure with all of your clients, you've had people always ask, what's okay to say to someone who's disabled? Or like, because the thing is, sometimes you don't know if acknowledging that you have a disability or diversity is the right thing to do. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, ooh, I'm uncomfortable, so I
Mhm.
just don't acknowledge it. Or like, what do you say?
Yeah.
Like, how do you approach it correctly?
Yeah. Well, I think number one, you ask. So
Okay.
I think everybody is different. And I think that there are kind of generalizations that I can make for, a lot of us. So I would say that for me, for example, um, you could use colloquialisms and not offend me at all. So if you want to say you want to take a walk, I'm not going to be like, I can't walk. You know what I mean? Like, of course, yeah, let's go for a walk. I have, but I do have perhaps other people that might feel differently, but I think it's, it's asking specifically when it comes to helping people. So, I have, friends with different physical disabilities where, you know, they, for example, say somebody falls, and a lot of people will want to come to the rescue and like, oh my goodness, let me help. And it ends up making it worse because there's a specific way that they might need to get up.
Mm.
They, you know what I mean? And so we jump into this help mode, whether it's let me get the door for you. And it's like, actually I want to use, I want to open it for myself. Like we all have, we have, you know, bodily, like it's autonomy, like giving me the space to be who I want to, be and all of that. And so it's a simple ask, can I help you? Do you need would you like for me to open the door for you? Would you like for me to, help you get it, whatever it might be? Again, because we're all human beings and you wouldn't do that in most other spaces. So I think it's a lot of times people think that they have to speak up or over. And I think that
Mm.
if anything, it's passing the mic. So even if I go into a store and a clerk says, um, I'm with a friend, this happens a lot, and they'll say, "Oh, is there anything that she's looking for or anything?"
Mm.
And my friend needs to say, "You can ask her." You know what I'm saying? Like it's in the same way. It's that allow us space um, to even ask or yeah and that to speak for ourselves. That's what I would say for sure.
That's really helpful. So almost like it's not like you have to pretend that you don't have the disability or
Oh,
the
oh
diversity,
gosh,
but like you
no.
said, asking, like it doesn't hurt to be like, hey, may I get the door for you? May I
Yes,
help you with something? It's just being more vocal
yes,
and acknowledging and having them feel, like you said, having the space to speak for yourself and to make the
yeah.
decision for yourself.
I think another big thing that we hear a lot, and there was the conversation, I think you and I talked about this maybe, with, what was it? The, what was it? What is it? Uncomfortable Conversations with the Black Man, I think.
Yeah.
And this whole concept of like where he said, I don't see, a lot of people will say, oh, I don't see race. And there's problem there. And it's the same with disability. I've gotten that, oh my gosh, I don't even see your disability. And I think at one time, I appreciated that because, I didn't want people to necessarily look and see disability. But what I have learned in my, as I've aged is that I I need you to see the disability because I need you to acknowledge that my experience is not the same as yours.
Mm.
And so, in the same way as a Black woman, my experience is not going to be the same. And if you don't acknowledge that, if you don't see that, and some of us don't have visible disabilities, so I'm not saying it in that way. But what I'm really saying is be considerate of my experience, whatever I choose to disclose. So if I don't bring it up in terms of, for example, if I have a mental health need and I haven't said anything about it, you know what I mean? Then obviously you're not, you may not know, or it's not your place to necessarily bring it up. But I would say for those of us that have if you invited me to your house and you have steps, and this has happened to me before, and I'm like coming over and I get there and I've literally had, oh my God, I completely didn't even think about it. I just never think about your disability. Yeah, that's a problem. Like
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, please think about my disability because now I can't access the space. And of course, where I'm at in life now is I tend to ask if somebody asks me to come over. And thankfully, most people in my life now will ask, hey, what do you need? But the flip side of that is that don't make an assumption that we don't have a solution for a problem or an issue such that you don't invite us to the space. So, for example, I also have not been invited to things because people make an assumption that, like, say it's an event at somebody's house, and they automatically go, "Oh, I want to have a game night. My place isn't accessible. It has steps, so I'm just not going to invite Andraea because I know that she can't get in." And honestly, I have a 3-foot ramp that like folds up and can go in the car and come with me. So it's also like, give me the choice. So I love when people say, hey, Andraea, I would love to invite you to this event. I know that it's not accessible. A, please try to find an accessible place. But B, and that's really first and foremost. Please try. But hey, I want to, host this thing at my house, and it has a step. Do you have any recommendations? Anything that we can do? And then I can make the choice. Yeah, actually, I have this ramp. Would love to come over. Or thank you so much for thinking about me. That probably would, whatever. But at least it doesn't look like exclusionary, because there have been so many things where I turn on Facebook or Instagram and it's like my whole group of friends or like a bunch of people that I know were it not for my disability, I would have been invited to that.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So let me know if this is like a similar vein, but it's almost like you are a spirit and a human first and foremost.
Yes.
But I must acknowledge that your experience is different. Just like if someone's vegan, I
Yes.
don't not invite them to my house because they don't eat meat. I say, can I make you a dish that you like that's vegan? Or, I have friends who have dealt with sexual abuse, and it's like, you are a person, you're a human being, but I know that your experience is a little different than mine. And so I might deal with, like, I might, try to include them or engage them in a different way than I would someone else. Is that like a similar?
Yeah, it's like, hey, I don't want to exclude you from this event that we're having at Maggiano's. It's going to be all meat. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
we're aiming to have, options. We're going to have a vegan option, totally. And also don't want you to be uncomfortable. Just letting you know there's going to be meat there. Like it's just, it's stuff like that. That it's like the awareness of, it's not surprising. I've thought about you. I know this about you. And so let's go from there.
It's funny because this is going to sound really silly, but I used to work at a bank when I was 18 years old. It was before I worked in the music industry. It was like the job that kept things going until I could find work. And I remember, this has always been a life lesson I return to a lot, is when I had to sell credit cards or, open new accounts. I used to be so terrified because I'm like, I don't want to push something on someone that they don't want. But then my manager said, well, how do you know what they want? How do you know if they need something or not? So she said, offer it and ask them, and they can make the choice. And so I'm like, it's like a theme that comes up. And so it's the same thing. It's like, how am I supposed to know what you want, Andraea? So I should ask you, and I should let you know and let you choose.
Exactly. Because there's so many, I've got stories for days. But yeah, when people, again, make the assumption that, oh, well, we did this because, and I'm like, thank you for thinking of me. That's not going to work. Like, what I mean? So it's just like, it's a conversation, and that's what it is. Just like, the uncomfortable conversation. It may be uncomfortable, but trust me, I would rather you ask.
Yeah. And I think it comes back to on a spiritual level, that's authentic power, is allowing everyone the choice and giving them the space to choose and to make that decision for themselves. Because when we don't give each other that space or that decision or that power, it
Yep.
limits, and it no longer becomes an evolving or like an opportunity to evolve. And so,
Absolutely.
yeah, that's really powerful. Um, so now that we're more digital now than
Yes.
ever,
Yes.
what does inclusion look like as far as how we can be inclusive with others? I know we can listen to more diverse voices. You've talked before about online events and how you can make it more inclusive, but how can we be more proactive in that in this digital
Mhm.
age?
I think it's the same thing, specifically if you're like hosting an event and then you put on there, if you have something where people are registering, then you're asking if people, how can we accommodate you? Do you have any access needs? Is the way that we tend to say it. For us, we make assumptions that, there will be people in the space that need sign language interpreters, that need live captioning, that need, that have other, whether it's communication needs, it's making things available digitally. So those in our spaces are like the low hanging fruits. And then after that, I think you can ask just as much in a Facebook post, an Instagram post, a survey monkey, whatever it is, what people need in order to feel included in the space. And I think it's that simple. How can we, support your full inclusion in the space? And that's it. And some people might be like, it may not even be disability related. You know what I'm saying? It could be that, I am a visual learner. Is it possible for you to send out the PowerPoint before? You know what I mean? Like, it's that kind of stuff, just being open.
That's great. I think that's
Mhm.
wonderful. What does the term coming as I am mean to you?
That's good. Um, it literally means, it means wherever I'm at in life, whatever my brain space is in the moment, whatever I'm looking like in the moment, just being able to be, and with no expectation or with no judgment. And I know for me, um, as a physically disabled person, one of the spaces that I tend to feel the most uncomfortable is going into any new faith community, specifically church,
Mm,
because of stigma around disability and, difference in that way. And I think that, because so many of our churches are still pretty segregated in a lot of ways, even if they call themselves multicultural, there tends to be a bend toward one or another, things that you often, I can often enter a space with the commonality of race or whatever, but disability tends to always stand out. And specifically in churches, because, there's this concept of, can we pray for you for healing? And so I have a lot of friends, honestly, the majority of my friends with disabilities they don't quote unquote do church because they
mm,
don't feel like they can come as they are, to be honest with you, because they feel like somebody's going to try to fix them, tell them there's something wrong with them, that they need to be repaired in some way. And quite honestly, there are so many of us that are more broken inside than anything. And having a diagnosis or a disability is not the thing that is an identifier of brokenness, in my opinion.
wow, that's really, really powerful. So, what are you most proud of accomplishing so far?
um, it's for me, um, it's the knowing that um, there are people who look like me in all, different, forms. Um, it's like that one person. It reminds me of the, you know, the parable of the sheep where Jesus like goes after the one. And so based on the platform specifically that I have right now, a lot of people kind of know me in the disability space, but when I get the opportunities to, I met last week with a woman who is a parent of a young Black boy with a disability, and you know, she was just saying, "Oh my goodness, we've been following you, and we watch it and all of this stuff." And that to me, I was like, "This is why it's worth it, because you're empowered, your son is empowered, um, to know that they have value, and that they deserve to." Be whoever it is that they want to be in the world, and that the world needs to make space for them, and they have, and that's why I use the word empowered more than I use inspire, because like when we're empowered, it's something inside that's like, oh wow, you know, I can do that, and I can be that, and I can go for it, and that doesn't mean from a standpoint of like a capitalist, like I got to get a job, I got to do this.
Mhm.
It really just means that like I'm great because I am. And when people see that, perhaps because they've had a conversation with me or whatever it may saw an Instagram post or whatever, that's what makes it. That's what I'm most proud of.
Oh, that's great. So I have just a few more fun questions and then
Okay,
we'll
fine.
make sure everyone can find you online and all that good
Okay.
stuff. So what are you excited about most right now?
Oh my goodness. This weekend I am leaving to go get my service dog. And I've been on the waiting list for 2 years. Yes, I have been on a waiting list for 2 years, and they sent an email a couple months ago, and it's COVID and all of the things. But we're gonna get on the road, and I get to go to California for a couple of weeks and train and bring home a dog. So
Oh
I'm
my
so
gosh.
excited. Yes.
Okay. I am freaking out right now. I mean, you probably know this, but especially people who have been a follower of mine for a while, they know how obsessed I am with dogs. They are literal angels in furry bodies.
Yeah.
And seriously, I'm going to tell everyone I know that you're getting a dog now because,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I'm so excited for
Yeah, so
you.
you will see, you all have to follow me because I don't even know. I don't know. Everybody's like, do you know? I know nothing. I know, I mean, they breed Labradors or Golden Retrievers or mixed. So that much I know. I don't know the color. I don't know the name. I don't know gender. I don't know anything. So it's literally this big surprise that I will reveal in like a couple weeks. It's
Oh
gonna
my
be,
gosh, I hope I get a text message at least
yes,
with a picture.
yes,
Oh
yes,
my gosh, I'm so
yeah,
excited for
yeah,
you.
yeah. So
Okay, that
yay.
was awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And okay, so my last question is what's a way that you've gotten out of your comfort zone recently?
Oh my goodness. I feel like I'm living outside of my comfort zone right now. My work has really taken off in a way that I can appreciate, and yet I am a professed introvert. Um, if anything, an ambivert. So I don't mind being around people. I just conversations like all day long. And so yeah, what I've kind of said lately is that I'm living in this place of like comfortable discomfort, because I'm able to use the gifts that I know that God has placed inside of me to do the work that I wanted to do. But it doesn't look the way that I ever would have written the book, right? So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, I spend my day in meetings, and I, you know, am managing a team now, which I didn't see myself doing at least right now. And I'm having to make hard decisions and have hard conversations with people and tell them, you can't say this and you can't do that, and you know, all of that. And again, as kind of the softer, completely non-confrontational, like uh, just world peace type of person. Yeah, I'm living in a place of where God is really calling me outside of, to be bold and I mean, I think about it like Joshua, like just being bold and courageous. And that is not easy for me, and yet finding my place.
Good for you. I feel like I am sharing that discomfort as well because I just grew at my team, and having, like you said, to make those decisions or to point things out and actually be the leader is like, oh, it's kind of
Yeah,
scary
it
sometimes.
is.
And
It is. Yep.
yeah, no, I feel you on that. That's
Yeah.
amazing though. Congratulations on everything you're accomplishing. And where can everyone find you online?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, at Andraea Lavant. So as long as you spell my name right, there's an extra A there. Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find and pretty active these days, more so than it's been in a while. But there's a lot of conversations that we had and that need to be had, and there is a lot. And God, I believe, is using my voice to reach people. So I'm just here to do what he's asked me to do.
Good for you. We'll make sure that every platform you just named will be in the show notes so that people can
Cool.
go to the description. You can click it, they can find you. And something that keeps popping in my mind is that God doesn't call the qualified, he
Yeah,
qualifies the called.
absolutely.
And so I feel
Yeah,
like you're called where you're at, and I can see him constantly growing and qualifying what it is that you need to accomplish. And I think that's amazing. Is there anything else that you would like to say before we sign off?
no, I'm grateful. I think I'm the type of person that likes to, build relationship, whether it's online or whatever. So feel free to reach out, to DM me, to, you know, email the website, my website, whatever. Reach out because I like to. I'm just not a fan of like, okay, we had that one conversation and that was cool. So yeah, that's it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time and
Yeah.
your wisdom and your spirit and your energy. It was just a wonderful conversation,
Yeah.
and we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thanks.